everybody. We just began. This is episode 166 of Directly to You, the fanatixfour podcast that I thought was going to give me a little bit more warning after I pressed record. Sure didn't. Normally, AJ would be doing this intro, which is very practiced and routine for him. I do not practice it because I don't have to do it very often. But basically, thanks for watching this show. We're joined today by some other people. I'll mention them here in a second. But, you know, you can subscribe and things like that. That would be helpful. And also you can be a supporter. There's a lot of different ways to do that on Twitch, on YouTube, you can't be a supporter on Discord. That's not really a thing, but you can join Discord. So that's fun. And there's a bunch of perks that come with that. AJ normally says them, but I'm not going to. Hey, I'm Parker. I'm a fanatixfour, but I'm joined by Pete and Steve of Flip Screen Games. Hello, Pete and Steve.
Hello.
Thanks for having us, Parker.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, and that's pretty much the end of the intro. Enough shilling, as Pete says, which I don't know that I've ever actually used that word in real life. So here we are.
Does it refer to the old British money? Is that what it
like
says?
shillings?
Like shillings? Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was just a verb. Like to. Well, I guess to shill. Maybe it's a backwards verb.
Yeah. Like it is a verb, but I think I don't know that it was originally that. I think it's become. It's been kind of co-opted and recreated to me.
But it was related to making money.
Yeah, that would be my thought, right? That's how I always use it and how I've always heard it used in that way, which is that I'm shilling because I'm pushing something where you can go give me money, right? Or something like that.
What we're getting at is that you're not even a boomer. You're Victorian.
Yes.
You're so old.
I want to
Edward Cullen.
I want to use enough old timey language that I can get a theory going on the internet that I'm secretly an old one or a vampire or something.
100%.
Oh, we need to Photoshop you into some black and white pictures now.
The question is what era do you go with? Because I feel like there's a lot of old timey stuff, but you couldn't throw that in with golly. Actually, I was going to say golly day. But you could because you just learned it over the generations.
It depends on how old I am.
Coming. Exactly.
Right. It's the thing. If I've been around since the dawn of mankind, then I know all the slang, You
speak Sanskrit. Is that a thing you can speak? I don't know.
Well,
but you do.
That would, can you imagine if I just I was in fact, here we go.
That's, we're already totally off the rails. And that's all that I've ever wanted. There's an episode of The Office. You guys watch The Office, right? I can't remember. Brooklyn Nine-Nine for sure. But
I'm rewatching it right now.
Hey.
I've just done the Fun Run episode, and
Nice.
I laugh so much at that episode.
It's so good. The one where Kelly goes to the minority training program or whatever, and then she comes back and she's like, "I'm so smart right now. You could ask me what's the top 10 companies in the world, and I would be like blah 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 blah, giving you the exact right answer." And the nuance of that joke is just it's not that nuanced, but it's hilarious. So it's a good time. It's great having you guys on. Hey, before we even get into things, tell us about Flip Screen Games. What's going on with that? This is your first public thing as Flip Screen Games, even though you've already recorded things that will go public, I guess.
Yeah. So just this past week, we recorded the whole first week of content. We'll be going live on
the whole first week of content. What is that? So that's more than one thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So I guess if you know us already, if you've seen us on the show in the past or whatever, right, you probably know us as Pete and Steve from the Potscast of Loot Pots.
You mean seen Steve on here before? You've never.
Oh, right. This is my first time on the show. Of course. Yeah. First time on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
AJ would have been
just
really
wait for the pair question.
Yeah. Let's talk about pairs too, right? So if you are familiar with our work from Loot Pots, Steve and I recently made the decision to break off that show and kind of go off on our own, rebrand as Flip Screen Games. And now the two of us are going to be doing 3 podcasts a week instead of 2. So we've got the Flip Screen Game Show, which is just our general gaming podcast. It's where Steve and I will talk about what we're playing. We'll answer listener questions, kind of more evergreen, kind of big picture topics rather than something that's more news oriented. And then we've got Nintendo Noise, which is going to be kind of the spiritual successor to, the original vision of the Potscast, which is just going to be, our dedicated Nintendo conversation. And we have our buddy Chewy Plays from Chewy Plays on YouTube as the third chair. He's also the host of the Haken podcast, Animal Crossing podcast. Go check out his work. He's going to be a permanent third chair on that show. So that's going to be a blast. And then if you are a Patreon supporter, you'll get access to our show One More Thing, which is going to be kind of the successor to the show we used to do After Dark, where Steve and I just kind of keep the mics rolling and, you know, I usually use a word to describe it that I'm not allowed to say on the show. But we just
with the Pete page.
we fool around, you know, fool around. We talk about whatever we feel like talking about, stuff outside the world of gaming, what's going on in our lives.
As an old timey word, futz around, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on brand.
We futz around and find out, you know?
Yeah. What if you just replace all of them with that? Honestly, that word's like, it's pretty close where as I'm saying it, I'm like, am I saying no, I'm saying an okay word.
But yeah, and then we'll have streams on Twitch every Thursday as well. That's going to be on our new Twitch channel, twitch.tv/flipscreengames. Nice. We're going to be working our way back to affiliate over there. So we would really appreciate it if you come and tune in for the first stream. Go give us a follow over there. But if you want to find all this stuff, you can just head to flipscreen.games. That's our website. We've got links to every single thing that we've got going on.
That's awesome. All right. Well, cool. Everybody. Yeah. Please go do that, because if you don't, we'll be really, really sad. Hey, have you guys been playing any video games?
Oh, I've been playing a lot of video games, Parker.
Nice.
I
want to hear all about them.
On the first episode of the Flip Screen Game Show, I think I talked about Pokemon Unite for like a half hour, and Steve did not rein me in. He just asked me more questions.
And then it was like the next day we recorded Nintendo Noise, and it was more of that because then Chewie was on the show.
Yeah.
And so it was more
and he's
of that.
also playing, I'm guessing. Okay.
Yeah. And then we had
people wrote in and asked
about it. So there was more of that. And I was just like, I know nothing about this game and I don't know what Pokemon is. And I don't know what a MOBA is.
I don't know what Pokemon is. Yeah. I mean, I remember Let's Go Pikachu is that your top like favorite Pokemon game, or is that the only Pokemon game you've played? I don't remember. You played some Pokemon, right?
Yeah, that's like my only one modern I've played. Yeah. Other than that, the only other time I've played them has been on like a friend's Game Boy or via an emulator. And that's the only time I've played Pokemon.
You've like put hands on them, but not really.
Yeah. I've never got into them.
Yeah. I've got to say, I think it's a hard thing to get into probably as an adult. I would guess it just feels overwhelming if nothing else, you know, like it doesn't have to for sure, but like even as somebody who dropped off for a little while coming back for Sword and Shield, even with the national decks or national decks gone and it being just a smaller decks, it still felt a little overwhelming, like just how many Pokemon there were that I didn't know. And like some things that like you pick up easily over time, but like type weaknesses, especially for like Fairy and maybe even like Steel, I feel like, which I mean, that was a long time ago. I shouldn't be having trouble with Steel, but
they change them generation to generation too, though, which is a thing. Yeah. Like I know Steel used to have a lot more resistances than it does now.
Oh yeah.
So like there are certain.
I remember in Gen 2, it was hard to figure out what at all to do to Steel because I never had a good fire type. So like, I don't know, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, like I'm maybe don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty positive that like it resisted like Dark, for example, and it doesn't anymore. Yeah, you know, so like there are like some they've definitely adjusted some of those things over time.
You forget about those kinds of things, and like there's moves that like other Pokemon will use that I'm like, I remember, is it acrobatics? Is that a flying move that fighting Pokemon? Okay. So I remember I was up against some fighting Pokemon and he was using acrobatics. And I was like, what on earth Pokemon do I use that's not like, I just kept switching into like a bug and like various Pokemon that were weak to it. And I was so mad that like it keeps messing me up. But yeah, so you were playing Pokemon Unite. Sorry,
how did you even learn that stuff as a kid though? Like, is it just trial and error? Did you just learn it? Discuss it with friends and on the playground, and you're like, oh,
everything,
a little bit of everything. Yeah,
it's trial and error. It's your community of Pokemon trainers that you talk with. Also, I had the original strategy guide that had like it had a type chart and everything in it, and I was
that's like, the kind of thing, honestly, though, that's perfect for kids too. Like thinking about like kids love dinosaurs, and it's just information for the sake of information, and it's just like fun to just here's a bunch of stuff that you get to learn, and Pokemon is rife with that. Like
I love that strategy guide. I like the collecting bit. It's the like JRPG light fighting bit that I'm just not into. And and learning all of that stuff and getting into the meta and the training and the like hunting for shinies. I just
that kind of stuff.
You don't have to do all that stuff though, some of it's optional. Like I think
sorry, go ahead, you first.
I was like the metagame and all that stuff is like, to me, that's like super appealing. That's the thing I like the most, right? Is that like, I like JRPGs, like I like turn-based battles. So like getting into that part of the game was like a thing that as a teenager was really helpful for me to be like, oh, I can get a little bit more out of Pokemon, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you don't want to shiny hunt, that's fine. You just have a good old time with your mons, go on a little adventure.
I just walk around and I throw my fake Pokeball at the screen, and I had a grand old time.
I'm not as much of a fan of. It's fine.
Yeah. But you've been playing Pokemon Unite, so thumbs up, I assume.
Yeah,
generally.
I am really into it. I obviously, as I'm sure is apparent, right, from what we were just talking about, definitely a big Pokemon fan. But when they announced Pokemon Unite, my initial reaction was kind of one of apprehension. MOBAs are a genre that like I definitely enjoy. Like I'm a big fan of League of Legends. I've played it off and on since season 2. Definitely not as much these days as a couple years ago, probably, but there have been points where it was like the game I was playing the most for long stretches of time, so I definitely have experience with the genre, but like there's really only been 3 MOBAs that I've ever played that I actually enjoyed. Most of them I would play them and immediately be like, this isn't as good as League, or yeah, this is cool or whatever, but I know what I really want to do. And then I would jump back into League. And I was kind of expecting that to be the best case scenario with Pokemon Unite, was that it would be something that would catch my attention for a small amount of time and then probably get me to jump back into League of Legends, or that it would feel like some other particularly some other licensed MOBAs that I've played, where it's like, okay, this feels like, yes, Pokemon's a good property for this. I can see how this would be good, but the MOBA,
mechanically they're using stuff that they're taking from other stuff instead of like leaning into Pokemon or whatever. Yeah.
And just feeling like it's like you're just putting, like there was like a DC comics one for a while, and it very much felt like that, where it's like you're just taking things from Dota 2 and League of Legends and throwing DC characters in it, and it didn't feel like it had enough of its own identity. Whereas what I think is really working for me about Unite is that it's very different. The matches are timed, so the longest matches are only 10 minutes. The short matches are only 5 minutes. It makes them super digestible. It makes them feel like low stakes, high reward. Because if you win a game, it feels great. And at least personally, when I lose a game, unless it's a really close loss and I'm frustrated that my team threw it or I made a mistake or something, I end up feeling like, well, I only lost 5 minutes, right? I only lost 10 minutes, and I'll jump into the next one and better luck next time. Whereas like with League, matches could take 10 minutes. If we surrender, it could take 20 minutes, which used to be how long it took to surrender. It could take 45. It could take over an hour.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that long with League. I couldn't, like, there's no part of me that could get into that.
And that's the thing, right? That
especially with a child, right? Like, how do you commit?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a hard time committing to like 15-minute bursts of things. So like, no way, man. Honestly, I mean, like I've had a hard time playing Monster Hunter because even though not every fight does take 50 minutes, like I've only had one actually time out, and it was because I was just way under leveled for it and stuff. The fact that it could take up to 50 minutes is just like, I don't know if I want to play this game because daunting. I don't know that I have 50 minutes. Like,
and that would be a thing, right? Like you'd be playing with friends and it's like, oh, it's 12:30. Like I should probably get going to bed. Oh, one more. Should we do one more? And it's like, okay. And then it goes for over an hour and you're like, Jesus Christ. Okay. And then you lose and it's like, no, this is demoralizing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that this game has kind of eschewed the kind of traditional way that you win in a MOBA, which is like push to their base and it takes as long as it takes, right? It's more about there's a clock and you need to get as much scores or score as many times as you can and play good defense. And like, that's the whole, it feels more like a sport, right? Where it's like the game has a fixed ending.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciate that about it. And in terms of, it borrowing things from other MOBAs. Like it definitely does, but I think it does enough to differentiate itself and feel like it's a fresh take on the genre, which has felt like it hasn't really had a new player that actually was interested in doing that since Smite, which is a very old game now. So yeah, it's something that I went into with I'll try it mentality, and I immediately got hooked on it. I bought a season pass the first night because I wanted to start working towards unlocking some skins and having more dailies to do and everything. I've since spent like another $20 on it because I'm like, I love this game. I want them to keep working on it. Take my $20.
Yep.
Bought like 5 more characters, and I've played at least about an hour, I'd say, every night since it came out, but generally a lot more than that. Like I've done the daily quests every single day. I haven't missed one login. Like I'm in on this game.
It reminds me, I guess, too, of like how Pokemon Pinball did a good job. I actually haven't played barely any Pokemon Pinball. I've just seen it a little bit, but does a good job of like, it's pinball, but it uses capture mechanics and like there's Pokemon elements fused into it. And like in general, I feel like they do a pretty good job of that thing. Maybe not with every property, but like, I don't know, even thinking about like Pokemon Brush Your Teeth, whatever it's called. Like, brush your teeth, catch some Pokemon,
Did
you know?
Sleep ever come out?
Nope, not yet.
No, I haven't heard anything about it in like
I can't sleep without it, so it's really difficult.
Honestly, it's a problem. Yeah, Steve, I know. It's really bad. I've been meaning to talk to you about this. But Steve, what have you been playing?
So I've been away for a week, so I haven't had much time to play video games. I played a ton of board games, but on my Switch, I was playing Overboard. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I feel like I heard. Did you post about it on Twitter or something?
I have been talking about it. Yeah.
Okay, because I think I saw you post about it, and that's it. But as I saw it, I was like, I wonder if Ashley would be interested in this at all. And so tell me more about it because I'd like to know.
It's really good.
Yeah, okay. It's a visual novel, and you have murdered your husband on a boat. You pushed him overboard.
I typically do. Carry on.
And you're trying to frame someone so you can get away with murder.
Okay.
So you wake up and someone's knocking on your door, and your husband's not there. The bed's not been slept in, and it's kind of like, what do you do? And there's every action you do has like it uses a little bit of the time of the day, and you can go talk to people, and you have to ultimately try and figure out how to get away with this murder without anyone suspecting you. And there's multiple ways you can do it, multiple people you can get it on.
So it's got like, you can, interesting. When you say multiple, is that like 3 different ways or like 20 different ways, or that kind of thing?
So there's ways you can do it where people think like he's just like gone and no one's like, he's killed himself. That's one way. But then that leaves you with only one of the win conditions. As you move on, there's like multiple win conditions. So
interesting.
Yeah, because there's like 3 tiers of it basically. Like you can either get caught, you can get away with it, you can get away with it and get his life insurance money. And then there's like a third secret one that I want.
There is another.
So it's like, it's got replay value essentially, where like you play. Okay.
Replay value.
Yeah. The first time I played it, after Steve had recommended it, I got the first 2 win conditions, just kind of going in blind and seeing just making choices.
Yeah.
And then every single time I've replayed it, trying to get the 3rd win condition, I've died and gotten none of them, or like something stupid like that.
Is there RNG as far as are the other characters predictable? You know what I mean? Like, is it the same thing every time?
It's the same loop every single time, but it will show you like choices that you've made, so
based on what you've done.
Made.
And
and you'll know like you'll know I've got to go to this specific place at this specific time to do this specific thing.
It's like I mean Groundhog Day, but what's the one with Tom Cruise? Edge of Tomorrow.
Which they a lot like that.
They renamed that movie. It's bizarre.
Oh, was that the or was it gonna be Die Repeat, something like that? Because that was on the box art, like the
Live,
movie
Die, Repeat.
Live, Die, Repeat.
They renamed
Live,
it,
Die, Repeat on it, and then on the side it said, I had said Groundhog Day with aliens and guns, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? That was a fun movie, honestly.
It was
like, Tom
it's
Cruise.
funny. I remember my roommate in college put it on once, and I was kind of like, oh, what?
Mhm.
Like, why are we watching this?
Yeah.
And like a few minutes in, I was like, yo, this is legit very interesting. I like this.
Yeah. Apparently, is it based on a book or something?
Think so?
Or it's no, it's a not a visual novel, like a graphic novel series or something like that. And apparently it's pretty different in that, like how it ends. Someone was telling me recently, but I don't know, kind of besides the point, but fun in any case. But nice.
It is like that where like there's a set trajectory that every character goes on, but like you literally can't experience it all at once. So I guess it's also kind of like Majora's Mask in that way,
right? Yeah,
where
totally.
like, you can experience all the things, but your character, you need to.
Yeah, it's impossible because every action eats a bit of time of your day, and you've got to do it by the time your boat docks in New York City. And if you don't do it by then, and they find out that your husband's not there, then they know
this
that
is interesting.
There's
also reminds me of Bandersnatch or whatever, which again is just pretty much a visual novel. But if I sell it to Ashley that way, I bet she'd be more interested in it. That like it's
so funny. It's
really good.
Okay, cool. The script is incredible.
Great art style, good music.
Great art style, good music. There's some like really kind of crude moments. So if
could it be fun to play as a couple?
I think
yes, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I was playing this with Macaulay, and they were like, oh, let's do this, or oh, you need to be on, remember, like you need to be here at like 9 a.m. because you do need to remember it's like one giant logic puzzle. What I will say though is I think each run takes like 30 to 45 minutes depending on how good you're doing. Like if you fail, like if you get knocked out, then something that's like that. Basically you're done. But it's about 30 to 45 minutes. So what I usually do is I'll do one, maybe two runs at most in a go, and then come back to it, because I feel like you can really wear it out if you play too much in one hit. It's the perfect kind of wind down game before you go to bed.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's fun. Nice. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check it out and see what Ashley and I think. I've been playing not a whole lot, honestly, because parenthood and all that stuff. However, I talked about it last week a little bit. Ashley and I have been playing Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Nice.
A lot of fun.
I love that game.
I felt like I was like, man, I really think Ashley will like this given the right environment. And like if she does well within 3 games, like if does decently okay or something within 3 games, then she'll like get hooked and get pretty good at it. And so sure enough, we played it with my friends last week, and like then every time we were with people, she was like, oh, we should play Ultimate Chicken Horse, and I was like, okay, cool. So we've played that several times.
I've never played this game. I know almost nothing about it.
Okay, I talked about it more last week, so as not to bore everybody who's already heard more about it. The long and short of it is it's a platformer multiplayer kind of situation, and there's multiple different levels where there's a start point and an end point. And like one of the most basic ones, for example, is it's like 2 buildings with a big gap in the middle. Every round, you and everybody there's a box of random items that, I mean, I'm sure there's some logic with how it picks items, but it's generally random items. Some are platforms, other ones are like things where like it shoots a hockey puck at you, and if you get hit by the hockey puck, or like crossbow with arrows, it's obstacles,
or like
of some
black
sort.
hole it'll suck you in,
or will also suck in like arrows and stuff. And like if you put a black hole here and the crossbow right above it, the arrows will like divert around it, which is just super fun.
You can make like these crazy physics puzzles. It's awesome.
So like every round you pick items to be able to cross from the start to the end, and eventually, like theoretically, you could all make it really easy so that you can all cross the end. If everybody gets to the end, nobody gets any points. So you have to figure out how to make it so that you can kill other people, you can't interact with anybody else. Like there's no, I don't know what that's called.
Like you can't like knock somebody else off. Like everybody gets to run at the same time, but like you can occupy the same space and not mess each other up or anything.
Okay, there's no like collision between.
That's it.
Yeah,
right. Collision, no collision.
But it's basically like you need to make the level so difficult that they can't get across, but not so hard that you can't get across.
Yeah,
And so is one person at a time then like the level creator?
No, so like all 3 of us would be playing, and then it would give us a box with like 6 items, and we'd each pick our one item. And then once we've all picked that, and it'll time out after a second if nobody does, then we'll all place that item, or each of our items, at the same time. So the first round, there's only 3 items on screen, which some of the levels, like you actually can't get across with just 3 items, because like if you have 3 platforms and just can't get the jump distance, then that first round just like nothing happens. But so as you go every round, we each get a new item, place each of our new items. And so there's like more traps, more platforms. You can get a bomb to blow up pre-existing items so that like everybody keeps going this one route and I've got a different route, but they don't know how to do this other one. And I know how to, or, you know, whatever. Okay. So like you blow up their easy route, that kind of stuff. It's super fun. It's very chaotic, but like in a really good way. It's
a phenomenal party game.
It's
so like
good.
A perfect game if you have a few friends over and you're like, you know, having dinner and drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
Similarly, this is another old game that's excellent. And I always think of when I think of Ultimate Chicken Horse, you should check out. Is Duck Game.
I knew it.
Do you know Duck Game?
I just said Duck Game. Yeah.
Okay. I did. Yeah. I love Duck Game.
It's
Duck
fun.
Game is masterful. Yep. Such a good time.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been playing. Hit quick highlights of other stuff. Played a little bit more Skyward Sword. It's good. I like it. I enjoy it. AJ was bashing on it last week, but I was like, I think I would stand up for it, but I haven't played nearly enough to even be able to say. So I don't really know. But I enjoy it. But I understand his criticism, so that's fine. And last week I was like killing myself trying to figure out. There's something I've been playing, but I don't remember what it is. But it's been 3 weeks since we've had the podcast, and it's that I played a little bit of Ring Fit, and I wanted to talk about that on the show because I was doing the 14-day challenge with Xeon over at Nintendo Life, but then I got sick, so I stopped at like 5 days. And I haven't picked it back up again, but yeah,
that's the killer, right? We did all of February.
Mm-hmm.
We put it down, and then we were like,
there it is.
Still got it right here, right handy.
Yep. Is it collecting dust, Pete, or have you been using it?
Yeah, it's got some dust on it. It's got some dust on it.
Yeah, mine was in a cabinet, and it still had literal dust on it, and I was like, that's pretty bad.
So like blow it off like a relic.
I now that we have Nintendo Noise going and Chewy's like on that show, I'm like, I think we just bring it back as a weekly segment so that we don't have any excuse to not work out. You know,
honestly, smart. Yeah, it's not that the one time I played it when I first got it, which is so bad. But the one time I played it, I like threw my back out and just went too hard. Like I turned up the difficulty too much, played too long, and was like, I'm gonna do this, and just scared myself off it, honestly. And again, threw my back out. So like, which is so dumb that happened. I think it was because my ceiling fan was right above me. So all the like things above my head, I was like kind of crouching down. So having really bad form and needless to say, I stood off to the side this time.
I think the one thing I learned playing that is you have to see it as a game. Like, yes, it's there to exercise, but they give you power-ups and things for a reason, and it's to make the levels easier because they know the levels are too hard otherwise. Like, oh my God, I can't remember what week it was, but both me and Pete just had squat after squat after squat. It was like that whole level was just legs.
And
we were dead.
And it was so funny because I remember, you know, like I said, we were doing it with Chewy, and you know, Chewy's a much thinner and more athletic guy than either of us. So I remember we got to that week and he's like, oh yeah, like I guess there are a lot of leg stuff. It's not like bothering me that much. And I'm like, yeah, well, I got like 120 pounds on you probably, Chewy, that I'm carrying around. So it's a little bit rough on my knees.
Man alive. Yeah, that'll do it to you. I mean, the other thing is like, it's, in terms of like you were saying, Steve, it's a game. Think of it like a game. Also, what's the point in going hard once when like exercise is about doing it for a long time? Exactly. So like if I do it for 10 minutes for many, many weeks and years and decades and millennia, because I'm a vampire like Steve or like Pete, sorry. Then we talked about that before the show, didn't we? I'm pretty sure that was
I think that was on the air.
Was it on
filling?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. We're good.
No, yeah, everybody knows.
I was like, what's going on? But yeah, like it's way better to just do a little bit for a long time rather than a lot once. So
that was why we put the thing that we had was you had to do 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Because we were like, that's enough that you're getting some kind of workout in, but you're not committing.
Is that 10 real life minutes or is that 10
in-game minutes on the clock?
Because how how is it that real life minutes and in-game on the clock minutes seem so different?
They are very different because like some days I was exercising like 30 or 40 minutes, and then
it was only
clocking
16
10.
Well, because certain levels would be like, there's a lot of like, nonsense kind of. There'd be like dialogue and stuff, and I'm like, can I skip this? I just want
like squeezing on the Ring Fit ring like crazy, just like skipping through all the text because I'm just like, I just want to get my 10 minutes. And then we would have those days when we were feeling lazy, and it's just like, I'm just gonna do 6 mini games today. That's all
I'll just play mini games for 10 minutes.
Yep, makes sense. All right, any last things that you guys are playing? Quick shout outs.
No, nothing on the Nintendo front.
Yeah, no Nintendo games right now.
I didn't put it in the news, but I did play one of the new Pokemon Snap levels last night very briefly. The embiggened one. So that was fun. Yeah, more Pokemon Snap.
I'm looking forward to jumping back into that and Mario Golf with those free updates this week. That's
yeah. And I didn't put Mario Golf. I didn't put Mario Golf in this because I know that's something that you guys talked about it a good bit, maybe not that much on your show. So if you guys want to hear Pete and Steve talk about Mario Golf, go listen to Nintendo Noise next week.
Check it out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. All right, that's it from what we're playing. But now moving on to the headlines. There's I mean, it's whatever. We did it. Here's the thing. I made a video, and this is the headline that we're talking about is a dumb old video that is a little bit controversial. Even though I don't think it's that controversial, but it comes off as it is. So
Nintendo fans got mad about something.
So it's funny too. I was going back, I pulled comments from it. So for context for anybody, normally we do what we're playing, news, comments from our videos, and then Q&A. We're just switching it around a little bit, doing comments from the video as this is the main topic. But I pulled comments from it, and they're like, as I was reading them, I felt like there were more that were like, you're wrong and you're dumb. And then as I went back, I was like, there's not really very many that are like that. There's a lot of people that honestly, some of the best comments left on any of our videos ever. I feel like just people like really thinking critically about some of this stuff that's interesting. And then there's some people that are just like, I disagree. And I was like, honestly, couldn't be happier for you. Like, that's awesome. Especially, the whole point of the video, if somebody hasn't watched it, which is totally fine if you haven't, is the video is called Nintendo Switch is Getting Boring. And basically, to sum it up, it's that the novelty of what the Switch is as a concept, as a product or whatever, that is just not novel anymore. And so it's boring by that definition, which doesn't necessarily mean that's bad, but that's just like, it's just standard, but then on the other hand, the thing that's not boring is the games. And that is kind of subjective. If you didn't like Animal Crossing last year, 2020 might not have been the best year for the Switch for you.
And 2021, if you didn't like Animal Crossing, I have a hard time feeling that like Mario Golf or Pokemon Snap were the games that you were like sweating for.
About Metroid though?
That's Metroid coming out, and like
that's coming out though.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, that definitely for some people, like 2021 definitely has more games that have been like heavy hitters for me personally, as far as like Bravely Default 2, played that for a long time. That was really fun. But then Metroid Dread will be a good time. But Animal Crossing was I kind of regret last year I said my game of the year was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I think I would go back on that and say realistically it was Animal Crossing. I just didn't want to say it at the time.
Don't you love that? Like, that's happened to me multiple times with game of the year picks where like I go back and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? I don't like this game better than this.
It's not even that it's not even that I disliked Hyrule. Like, I really enjoyed Hyrule Warriors, but like
you were caught up in it at the time.
I think so. Yeah. And like that, I didn't want to see 2020 as the Animal Crossing year for me, but like, because I wasn't still playing it at the end of the year, that's what it was. Like right now, I don't care about Animal Crossing as much, but like holistically 100% it was Animal Crossing. So
I think that's the consensus I came to on our game of the year. And I also said it's like the game of 2020. I think it sums up that year.
100%.
Not just my game of 2020, but it is like it defined that year for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still didn't pick it as my game of the year, but I stand by that. That was fine.
What did you pick as yours?
I think it was my number 2. I think my number 1 was Ghost of Tsushima.
It was, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which I stand by because not even just because like I necessarily, I don't know, like that was the game I remember having the most fun with. You know, like Animal Crossing was like, I loved it. It was a wonderful experience, but Animal Crossing also very much felt like a lifeline. You know, so it's like all the positive feelings I have about that game are also tied up with some less than positive feelings about why it was so important to me at that time, you know? So, you know,
do you follow Gene Park from the Washington Post? And he was like tweeting about this week. He's given his Animal Crossing Switch away because he said it reminds him, or he's given it to like a new reporter.
Wow.
Interesting.
Because it just reminds him of the beginning of the pandemic, and like he can't expunge that. It was the first thing he bought as soon as lockdown hit.
You know what though? I kind of like, I've got fond feelings of the beginning of pandemic, like September, and by the time September came around, I was like, this, God, please stop. But the way beginning was kind of like novel, you know, like to go back to that word, like that was, but I also totally get that. Especially like, I mean, if you know people that like, you know, that passed away because of it or had even just like really bad health because of it, then it definitely, you don't just think about the like hanging around the house and eating, you know, buffalo wings or whatever that I got from the frozen section at Kroger every week. But
around that time, I was like having barbecues for lunch every day because it was like we were just at home. It was like put the grill on and just have some beef burgers.
Live it up, man. So that's kind of the concept of the video. And I'll go ahead and just start reading some of the comments to kind of get into the topic. But I'd also very much, you know, obviously like to hear you guys' thoughts on all this. So yeah, here we go. All right, so this first comment, this is from Chronically Cal, who said, so again, I tried to pull a wide swath of comments of like some that very agreed and some that very disagreed. And I kind of did that.
I saw one further down, but you know, just peeked on my screen.
And so it's again, it's tricky because like, not tricky, but like the ones that just straight up are like, I disagree, you're wrong, the Switch isn't boring. Truly, I'm like, that's the best case scenario. Like I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to state an opinion, I guess.
You're not allowed to do that, Parker. You can't just put your opinion out there on the internet and expect people to just accept that. That's not how this works. Okay. We don't have discourse on the internet. We have Discord on the internet. That's
true.
Okay.
Yeah, you're so right, man. What a saying, honestly. Is that an ad for Discord? Not
like an anti-ad for Discord. Exactly. I've never quite understood why they chose that name for a community app,
that
but
is
you know,
really weird.
It's a little weird.
So Chronically Cal said, I'm personally not bored with my Switch at all. In the last month, I played Skyward Sword, truly delved into Minecraft for the first time, revisited Pokemon Snap, which in turn made me pick up drawing again, and played Trivial Pursuit with my family. I still play it pretty much daily and am excited for what's to come, like my first Metroid game in October. Speaking for myself, and I hope I don't sound like that person right now because I've been on the other side of it with games like Hollow Knight, I think the Nintendo/Switch community has gotten more boring. It seems like the tides of Nintendo discourse has shifted more toward the negative, and so I've distanced myself because even though it probably shouldn't, it dampens my experience with the Switch and its games. Skyward Sword is a great example. It was my first non-Breath of the Wild 3D Zelda, and it had interesting characters and a cool lore establishing story and button controls, all caps, which allowed me and my mobility disability to play it in a way I couldn't have on Wii. But it also created a lot of discourse. Hey, look at that. Which, hey, people should speak their mind, but which also got annoying when I wanted to be excited about a new experience I was finally able to have. In that sense, I guess the Switch as a cultural object rather than a gaming console has gotten more boring for me. I miss engaging with the community, hence a long comment, I guess, but the Switch itself is still awesome, in my opinion.
I definitely agree.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that what Chronically Cal's saying here is making a lot of sense. We talked about this on the episode of Nintendo Noise this week, so you go check that out when it drops. Where like I think the problem is that the Switch isn't hot anymore. right? Like, which is the point of your video, right? Is that it's not that the Switch is bad. It's not that the Switch has no games. It's nothing like that. It's that I think the allure of the Switch, the freshness of the Switch has waned. In the same way that, you know, when the Switch dropped, like the PS4 and the Xbox One felt a little stale, right? And then they had refreshes. And I think with the fact that everybody was really hoping for that Switch Pro announcement around E3 season, I think that's part of the thing, is that people wanted new hardware, but they didn't want the OLED Switch. And I think that a lot of the kind of marquee titles that defined the early days of the Switch are kind of lacking right now. You know, I think you can't argue that Animal Crossing isn't a marquee title, but to your point earlier, Parker, if you're not an Animal Crossing person, you're not an Animal Crossing person. And that was kind of the game last year. And, you know, not to say that all the games that have come out this year haven't been great. I've enjoyed a lot of them, but I think it's definitely fair to say that they're more in the B or C tier of Nintendo franchise hierarchy.
Like, I loved 3D World and Bowser's Fury. I had such a good time with those games.
Yeah.
And I would say they're like A tier, but you know, if you really played 3D World on the Wii U, then obviously it's not a new game for you.
Yeah.
And say that you didn't, that's one, or I would say A tier game. And then I think like your Pokemon Snaps, your Mario Golfs, your Bravely Defaults 2, not to say anything negative about those games. Those are all games that appeal to me and my sensibilities, but I think that those are all more niche titles. And I think,
which I mean, we saw through, we'll be looking at some financial figures and stuff like that here in a little bit. And we see there for sure, it's not like the fact that Animal Crossing could sell 10 million copies in like a week or whatever it was at the beginning, you know, and the most of those newer titles was new Pokemon Snap. I like 2-something million, like definitely reinforces to me that it's an awesome game that I really enjoy, but it's like, as far as production quality, it's like all the way up there for Nintendo Switch titles. But as far as, like it being a niche game versus a completely broad appeal game, it's definitely on the smaller end of that, considering it's a Pokemon game, you know?
Right. Exactly. It's not something that has the same mass appeal that's going to like put waves through the industry as a Breath of the Wild, as a Mario Odyssey, as, you know, a Mario Kart, you know, those titles all, you know, and granted, those are some of the best selling games on the console, right?
But of all time or whatever.
Sure. Like, but I even think of something like Fire Emblem Three Houses a couple years ago, right? Or Pokemon Sword and Shield, right? Where, you know, those are games that, or maybe Pokemon's a bad example, but Fire Emblem, right, is a game that is niche, but it was a moment. You know, it was a big moment on the Switch, and you felt it through the Nintendo community, right? There was lots of people trying Fire Emblem for the first time and falling in love with it. Like I think both of us, Parker, right?
Absolutely.
And lots of people, you know,
Steve, one of these days, you know.
Hey, I played a good 3 hours of it.
Yeah,
3 hours. That's nothing. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's how
it's nothing.
Goes.
But
it was better than the 10 minutes. I got to see the really bad fruit, and you know that was all I needed.
Tried it. You tried.
He tried the really bad fruit. You can eat it. I'm just kidding. Yeah,
so
you can eat
I think when you don't have games like that are defining the moment as much, it's easy to feel like, well, what's going on the Switch right now, you know? And I think especially when you have that in the context of there being, you know, shiny new next gen, now current gen consoles that are, you know, have been released within the last year, you know, a little bit less. I think that also kind of exacerbates that problem, you know, and also, you know, Nintendo we haven't had like a big direct, like every quarter that is like, here's what's imminent, here's what's in the long term. Like we have so many studios from them that we don't know what they're working on right now, you know? So I think all of those things are kind of bubbling over to create this overall, I don't know, I think attitude of negativity around Nintendo a little bit in a way that we haven't seen pretty much through the entirety of the Switch, because most people have just been like, Nintendo's killing it. Nintendo's amazing. We love the Switch. It's had great games every single year. And now that we're in a bit of a lull, you know, I think people are kind of sitting there asking, okay, what next?
It's interesting too, because I think the lull and all that kind of stuff is not just person dependent, but is kind of community dependent too. We're like, the two of you, me, AJ, whatever, like content creators, we tend to look at like the gaming space as a whole, and like the like people's interest in things and all that, talking about the fact that new Pokemon Snap is like where it falls in the interest level for people as a whole. But like, I can definitely imagine, and that's also just my tendency, even before creating content, I just like to think of things kind of in the big picture, like businessy sort of way or whatever, which I think there's some people that absolutely don't. And in that case, like it totally, if you're in a circle of just like Monster Hunter fans, for example, which is a pretty big circle, arguably, like this year was that much more exciting because there were 2 new Monster Hunter franchise games. And so there's an element of that where for somebody last year at some point in time sucked, for someone else it's like, but there's Tokyo Mirage Sessions and that's really exciting for me. And so,
right.
it is interesting how the niches not only, do determine this for like individual people, and especially the comment that kept coming up too, that I talked about in the video, but like didn't really harp on very much. So I can understand it kind of being overlooked, is anybody who just got a Switch. Like I'm pretty much, this video was talking to people who got a Switch in like 2017 or 2018.
Right.
And maybe some people beyond that, especially if they like, racked through their backlog incredibly quickly or something like that. But if you've been following the Switch for most of its lifespan, then there's a good chance that you feel somewhere in this same camp. Maybe not, but if you literally just got a Switch 4 days ago, then like everything's exciting. There's like hundreds of games, but still that's not like the gaming landscape necessarily.
Yeah.
That's not the conversation. And that's where I'd say with Chronically Cal too, I enjoy the discourse, the like kind of big picture stuff of that, like he was saying. And so that's something that isn't as person dependent, I suppose, a little bit, again, within communities, but as a whole, I miss the times when it was more fun to watch Nintendo YouTube videos, and I haven't changed that much. Like I know, like I don't watch Nintendo news videos. That's definitely different, but there just were more creative and interesting Nintendo YouTube videos earlier on in the lifespan because people had more energy to be interesting about it, I guess. And now it's just,
I guess more people were looking for it as well, right? Because
totally,
it was a new,
absolutely
fresh thing. So there's more incentive for creators to make those things. Whereas at the moment, if you're a YouTube creator, there's tons of incentive, or especially last year, to make things about like the next gen consoles, the Xbox and the PlayStation 5, because that's what's getting the clicks, that's what's getting the views. So I guess a lot of creators kind of shifted and swung over that way. But I think going into next year with Splatoon 3 announced, with the Breath of the Wild sequel, I think we'll probably see a swing back again. Exactly. And there's going to be another Switch at some point. There's bound to be a sequel to this console. And I think then the other consoles will be kind of midway through their cycle. And it will be like, right, the Switch is the new hotness again, and people. Man,
the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are feeling a little stale.
Honestly, I mean, I'll get to that in a comment where it brings it up. Whatever, I'll just get to it now. I would argue, even as somebody who isn't going to get an Xbox Series X or PS5 or whatever, but that those consoles in and of themselves don't have nearly the novelty shelf life that the Switch ever did, and that's not to say that you can't absolutely love the consoles, but I think they're, as you can tell with people like who have a PS5 and are like, I don't really know what to play on it because not a whole lot has come out or something along those lines. And I know I'm speaking to a PS5 fanboy. You want
to give me a soapbox right now, Parker?
That's how I felt like first year of the Switch. You remember like the first week it was, I've got Breath of the Wild and I was hungry for other stuff. I was downloading everything, snipper clips. There was that one with all the shapes that you shoot. I can't remember the name of the game. And I
Graceful Explosion Machine.
Yep. I picked
Blaster Master 2.
anything that showed up, I would buy. Apart from Troll and I.
Right.
Anything else, I
Pretty
was
much
on.
anything.
Yeah.
I love. I just as a side note, I love that there's this fairly small. I mean, it's several million people, but this kind of just small group of people that all have this shared experience of exactly that. Those games, like Troll and I, means a very specific thing to me. It means a game that I thought would look cool and then found out was the jankiest thing ever. And I didn't buy because it was the jankiest thing ever, but I still thought looked cool. And I feel like there's like at least 100,000 plus people that feel exactly that same way.
Shout out to Snake Pass too. That was another really good early, random ass indie game that I was like, oh, this game is great.
And Fast RMX. I was waiting for Mario Kart to come out, and I downloaded Fast RMX, and it was like nothing like Mario Kart, but I still loved it.
I mentioned that very briefly in my video too, that like in the early days of the Switch, you were lucky to get 5 games at all come out within a week. And now literally, so I counted the last week of July. Take a guess on how many games came out on the eShop the last week of July. I mentioned it in the video, but you guys didn't see it, so you don't know. Just wild guess.
97.
Oh, that's way more. Never mind.
Okay.
It was, I was thinking you're going to be like, I don't know, like 30. It was 43, which to me still feels like truly so many games to come out in 1 week. Like that's 7 days.
Yeah, 1 week. That is quite a lot.
And I mean, when you put it in the perspective of like, I think that's about like a fifth of the entirety of the games that were ever released on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, honestly, and like within the first, that's more than 10% of the first year of the Switch. And that was when it had an eShop still. Like it I think had like 300-ish games within the first year. That 43 games. It's at again, I don't know, like 15%, something like that. So yeah, that's like just. But at this point, it's funny because I truly couldn't tell you more than a couple of the games that came out, and that's because they were the big ones. And whereas in the early days, like I know every single game that came out. So it is an interesting thing. And like, there was, I think, more fun, like conversation to be had back then. Whereas then now, like I think about E3 this year and people are still talking about Metroid Dread for sure. For a little while, people were still talking about Breath of the Wild 2. Nobody's talking about WarioWare. Nobody's talking about Mario Party. Nobody's talking about
Steve and I are. We are.
Okay, well, good. But like in general, I can't.
Steve, you're muted, but I see you.
Yeah, we are. They were the two most games I was most excited about. Nice. That and Advance Wars. It was like a resurgence for the GBA generation.
Yeah, no, totally. It's super exciting, but like it is like there's a palpable difference. The fact that there's not at least one new pretty popular video every week about each of those games. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, and that's just different. It's like general conversation wise, things are taking a change. I'm going to read the next comment now. Pat Green said, and this is funny because this kind of goes back to a little bit what you were saying earlier, Pete. Pat Green, hello, Pat Green, said, "Hey, Parker, nice video. Thanks. I think about halfway through the OLED announcement, my Switch excitement died a little. I love the system. I want the OLED model too, for that matter. But till that moment, everything was more exciting. Haha. Milking this gen makes financial sense, but it seems safe, doesn't it? Making a higher performance model for the mid-gen refresh would really have been a bold move." So gut reaction to this, well, not gut reaction. I read it and then I copy pasted it and then I'm reading it again now. So, but agreed. Like, I think there was kind of some potential energy excitement going about the Switch Pro for so long that it didn't get met when the Switch OLED thing announcement happens. And that's no shade on the Switch OLED, but it's just like, if you set your expectations at something and then something less than is talked about, then like, there's not a whole lot to be done. You're just going to be deflated, probably, but maybe not. Maybe you're the kind of person that can just be like, oh, I mean, I would typically say that I'm the kind of person that can just like shrug it off and be like, it is what it is.
Yeah, that was
I was genuinely disappointed because I was ready for the Switch Pro, and I like just truly doubled down on all of those rumors. The more we were getting out Bloomberg each week, it was like, I believe this, Yeah.
And I still think it's true for at some point. Like
it feels like two things got conflated. There is probably going to be one with the new NVIDIA chip, and there is one with the new OLED screen, and eventually those two will become one and the same.
Yeah.
It does feel like, it was kind of out of nowhere as well. The announcement was just dropped on Twitter, and it was very kind of strange how they did it. But I also wonder, if you're not tuned into the rumors and this kind of thing, how many people were expecting a Switch Pro, and to just have like
None.
a new, nicer Switch that, oh, I was planning on buying a Switch, now there's a new one. That's really great.
I think
I can go and buy a fresh new console.
That's totally a salient point. And I think it speaks to something that Parker said earlier, which is that I think a lot of people like us, right? So either, video game YouTubers, podcasters, whatever, or people that watch that stuff all think that our experience and the people we know are representative of all people, and we're not, right? Like I have lots of friends that are gamers that I would even say are arguably hardcore gamers, right? Play a lot of video games, but don't pay attention to video game media that way. And like might have an idea of games that are like coming up that they're interested in at some capacity, but like, aren't like, they might know that the next Horizon is coming out, right? But they're not like, oh, Horizon got delayed, oh my God. Like, like they don't care like that. They might not have even been aware that it was promised for this year, whatever, right? Like those folks are content playing old games, or, be like, oh, I didn't play Ghost of Tsushima 3 years ago. I'm going to buy it now on sale for $3 and enjoy it just as much as you did, and I
think in general, fully agreed. The only thing I would say as a slight counter argument is I've encountered more people than I expected to talk about the Switch Pro. Then I'm like, who? You don't care that much. Like they have a Switch, they play some games, and I like totally anecdotal evidence, but like I wonder if that Switch Pro thing, because it's been such a long time rumor, that just the verbiage of it, not even the details of like, it's 4K, it's this, it's that, but I feel like it's become like a playground rumor kind of thing, where like just a guy at my church that has a Switch, and he found out that I do Nintendo stuff, and he's like, so the Switch, and then I said too many things that was like, he was like, oh, that's a lot of information, and that kind of a framework or whatever. But he was like, what about that Switch Pro rumor? To where like it seems like that's something that's kind of pervaded. However, I wonder if for those people, they think that Switch OLED is the Switch Pro. You know what I mean?
Like
that's a good point.
It's a bigger screen. It's nicer. It's got that different kickstand. It's a slightly, different footprint.
It's white. Everybody knows white technology, very hip right now.
Very hip. So yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, to Pat Green's point, I don't know why I said your whole name. To Pat's point, I think there is truth to that. To like that. There was some momentum, and it was towards the wrong thing, and like now that the thing was wrong, it's like sinking back into the other things feels I don't know, different, in any case. Continuing on, I tried to get more and more negative as we went. Not those first two weren't negative at all. I can't remember if this one is at all. No, it's not. Michael Wright said, I find the Switch boring at times, but believe that it's kind of the SNES of its time. 30 years down the road, we or our kids are going to pull this system out and play it for nostalgia alone. It's not something PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, or even PC really have. A nostalgia factor that makes the system exciting now and for future audiences.
Do I like the sentiment, but I really hope that's not the case. I really want Nintendo to actually commit to doing decent backwards compatibility.
Okay, that's a good point.
Games on a console that's modern, on like not a 720p screen in 30 years time. Yep. I want something that's new and fresh.
I mean, like Xbox, like how you can continue playing pretty much all Xbox games on the newest. And so where you can still have nostalgia for the OG Xbox, but that nostalgia can be taken part in on the Xbox Series X. That's a really good, because I still agree in general that like as far as lineup, I think people chastise it now sometimes. But like when the Switch is done, as far as like the whole console, I would argue that it'll probably be one of if not the best of all of Nintendo consoles. Like people, I feel like it's been. So. I feel like it. Yeah, I think so.
I think it's safe to say it's already in contention for that. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And it's easy to not feel that way in the moment because right now you're like, there's not an amazing game coming out next week that I can play or whatever, that kind of thing. But that's because we've already played some of those games.
You stack up all the wins that the Switch has already had, and you compare that to even the last two I think there are probably more breakout all-time great Nintendo games on the Switch than there are in the last two generations of Nintendo consoles.
Yeah.
And
it's true. I mean, I would agree with this comment against as contrasted to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. I wouldn't say that they don't have it. I would say to a lesser extent, and depends on the console for those for sure. And also like personal experience. Also it's just because like I'm more of a fan of Nintendo or whatever. But like whenever people are like, look at this PS1 lineup, what a great lineup of games. And then I look at those, there's a lot fewer of those games that I'm like, yeah, I really want to play that game. That's like, like I feel like some of those consoles really thrived on the fact that they had the like third-party multi-platform kind of thing, but those games have cheapened a little bit over time. Like they don't stand the test of time always as well. Some absolutely do. But so
I always argue that I don't think any of the N64 games really stand up in terms of like control scheme and how they play now.
I don't think that the Nintendo games of those same eras hold up any better for the most part. It depends, but yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't necessarily agree with that because I think that is a very Nintendo fan perspective.
Yeah,
that Nintendo stuff is better and more nostalgic and like me too, right? Like don't get me wrong, you see my case of amiibos and everything, but speaking as somebody who's, like I'm an only child, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not athletic. So when I was a little kid, video games were my one thing. Yeah. And then eventually I picked up music too, right? So aside from that, like games were my thing. So I've pretty much had every platform, every generation that I've been cognizant enough to want them, you know? So when I think back on like the stuff that I'm nostalgic for with games, like PlayStation and Xbox are absolutely a part of that. And I think if you go and look at a PlayStation podcast or an Xbox podcast of people who have that same lineage with those consoles instead of Nintendo, you'd see the same argument being made there, right? Where, because like you think about what was one of the first images that was going around when Xbox announced the Design Labs was coming back, was someone recreating the Xbox 360 controller, right? There's nostalgia there.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think too, like on the pro side of that was a thing I was going to say that I've kind of forgotten until I said that sentence. But to agree, there's more and more, I think it's becoming true. We're like, especially looking at the PS1, for example, first party titles weren't as much of a priority then.
Oh, they definitely were.
They didn't really have first parties.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's an element of I remember all the things I was going to say now. I was kind of fluffing for a second there. Nintendo, like their first party thing and all that means that they can have a Disney Vault approach, which means that those games are always going to be like, you can always feel nostalgic for them. Whereas because earlier consoles for Xbox and for PlayStation were more third parties than first parties, as far as like the really breakout hits, with exceptions, obviously, then those games have all kind of come back in their own different forms and have, so you can't have, it's harder to have quite as robust a nostalgia, not for the platform, but like for me as an outsider, I can look at the N64 and be like, here's a bunch of games that I've never played. And I could look at all of them at the same time. Or maybe SNES is a better example because I didn't have an SNES when it happened. I can be like, I want to go back and play all these games, but with the PS1 Classic or something like that, it's like, I could play that game there. That game's a lot better there.
PS1 Classic was like a trash line.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Really
but I will say that like that PlayStation, Xbox and stuff, as far as first party stuff goes now, moving forward are doing incredibly better to where now, like, I think all of the consoles are just going to stand the test of time as far as first party stuff goes, from like PS5, Xbox Series X and Nintendo Switch. Like those libraries, I mean, we could be proven wrong by the end of them for some of them for sure, but I think those libraries are just going to look like stellar by the time they're done.
I think
across the board.
I mean, I think to your point, like both the competition, right, who are younger,
Mm-hmm.
Their legacy is something that is like fairly recent
Yeah,
to them,
right.
like you think about, the PlayStation 2 is the best selling console of all time, right? Obviously a lot of people have connections with PlayStation. But I think like PlayStation kind of celebrating its past is something that's like they still haven't quite figured out,
Yeah.
And
but I think
they did a great job with the like PS5 packing game. Like, the
Astro.
Yeah, that was great with the Labo, which is just ridiculously named, just stolen. But I even think that when I think back to my childhood, the majority of the games I think about are actually PC games, which I don't think many people of my age feel that way.
Heroes of Might and Magic.
Yeah, like the Age of Empires, the Diablos, the
that's like I feel like a person a little bit older than us think. like
possibly.
Like my friend Relic Vampire, who's a Twitch streamer, is like a couple years older than us and is like has a huge nostalgia for a lot of the same games that you do. And I'm like, I feel like that's like a person who's like 31 type energy,
But secretly that's how old I am, Pete.
Is that why you always call me a boomer? Because you want to like hide the fact that you're actually older than me?
You're a boomer. Yeah.
I'm 28.
I turned 30 soon. That's crazy. Continuing on. I'm going to go to the next comments and we'll keep moving here. Joshua said, so this is getting into the negative ones, which is great because I want to talk about these. Here we go. Joshua said, kind of wish you would have stuck to one point of view rather than indecisive. Possibly follow up with different video with separate opinion. Just very unfulfilling. Ironically, I am following up with a different video. It's this one. It's the podcast. But I'm going to do a real one. I did respond to this. I think I responded to most of these comments too, because it's fun to respond to comments. But for one thing, I was like, I wonder if you finished the video. If you did, then that's on me for not doing a good job of articulating my point. Because like, all right, I didn't articulate well enough. But I feel like it was a pretty straightforward point. But again, I'm not defending myself, but I just wanted to, for anybody who like it felt that way, it being unfulfilling part, I feel like there is an element where it's like it's more fun or entertaining to watch a personality that's either dead right or dead wrong, or like has a strong opinion about something, even though you disagree with it or something like that. I'm sure that's more entertaining, but it's not honest. And so like, I'm not going to just be like, Switch is boring and it's dumb. And like, none of these games are good anymore. They used to have good games. Now they have dumb games. Cause that's not the case. But the real final point of the thing for me was, I mean, I've already said it at this point plenty of times. I'm not going to reiterate it again, but yeah, just wanted to grab that comment for whatever reason. Last one. Here we go. I'm going to say this wrong. Goncalves, except for it's a C with a little CG. So
that's the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hello, welcome to this comment. Said, nah, who cares? The games are still there. People are just too nostalgic, not boring at all. Your point is literally there's many more games and it's kind of boring. Do you prefer wonder or playing games? WTF? If you because I mentioned that like that was kind of long-winded, whatever. I brought up wonder and that was like a fun part of the early days of the Switch that like I was like, I don't know what it's going to be. And that was kind of what we talked about earlier about like the conversation stuff. If you prefer wonder, maybe gaming isn't for you. Just be a journalist. And honestly,
first of all,
yeah.
Have you ever claimed to be a journalist?
No.
You're a Nintendo YouTuber. Those are not the same thing.
Very true. And my wife, who has a journalism degree, would obviously beg to differ with that. I mean, and there is an aspect of truth to this where like part of the fun for us as content creators, as people probably watching a lot of these videos, isn't just the playing games, but is the part surrounding it too. The community part, right. The conversation part. Like, so yeah, I mean, but that's, I'm also like said multiple times that it's also now it's up to the games. That's the part that's really going to be make it or break it for whether the Switch is exciting or not. It's like, are there cool games coming out on it? Obviously, there was nothing in 2020 besides that was going on. I mean, there was COVID, but like in March, Animal Crossing came out and there was no new hardware or whatever. It was just Animal Crossing, and Animal Crossing was the thing that people got excited about. So like,
I mean, we got the Animal Crossing Switch as well. That was pretty.
That's true. You make a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this comment's kind of nonsense. I got to be honest with you, listener. If you're listening to this, I feel like you're being a little critical. Wonder is like absolutely part of like the video game experience. Like if you're in it beyond just playing the games, which obviously all of us are, or we wouldn't be here talking about it, right? We'd be going and we'd be playing a game right now. Part of the fun of it is the news cycle, is the hype, is you know, the conversation. That's part of the thing, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think
we spoke about it, I think, on this week's show. And it's the whole FOMO I get whenever there's a new game released, and it's like, I know this game isn't for me. Like, say it's a new Pokemon game, and I'm not really into Pokemon, or like a new Smash Bros, because I'm terrible at that game, as AJ will tell you. He tried teaching me on stream.
Maybe you're better than you think. You never know.
No, I'm not.
I don't think so. I think Steve's exactly as good as he thinks.
But I get drawn in anyway because everyone's posting screenshots and talking about how great it is. And that is the kind of, I guess, the magic that you were talking about that you want to try and recapture, because it was that time at the beginning when everything was fresh and everything was new. And you obviously can't have that all the time.
Yeah, right. And also, I don't know that we ever will to the extent that we did at the early days of the Switch.
I was just about to say that.
Go for it. Yeah, all you.
Because like coming off of the Wii U,
100%
was such a down point, you know, like right, me, Mr. Nintendo guy, right? I was one of those people who was like, man, I bought a Wii U and I wanted to believe, and Nintendo has not delivered, and I feel like it's time to pack it up. Like.
Yeah, I think we both had the same argument. It's like, just do a Sega and just put your awesome games on other platforms.
And I was like, keep putting out handhelds, right? Keep doing handhelds, but stop making consoles, because you're not supporting them and you're just putting them out to die and throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks, you know? And it just was frustrating, you know? And then they had made that announcement that they were bringing the handheld and home console development teams in the same houses. They were going to be sharing resources. Then we learned about the NX that became the Switch. And it was like, it felt like Nintendo was like a phoenix rising from the ashes, you know, like after this really long point of, and even as far back, you look at the Wii and the DS, where it was like Nintendo became the casual, family friendly. It became kind of a punchline to a lot of hardcore gamers. And then the Wii U and the 3DS kind of were just slightly less successful versions of those same ideas. And I like the 3DS.
Yeah, the Wii U was only slightly less successful than the Wii U, right?
Just a little. Just a little. Just you know.
But even as far as not even sales wise, but just sticking the landing of the concept.
Yeah,
still,
right.
Yeah,
of
slightly
like
less successful. Yeah.
Even for all the things that you could criticize the Wii for, right? Like the Wii was innovative, and the desire to get one was immediate because the messaging of what it was clear. And everyone was like, yes, this is a product that I want. And you definitely couldn't say that about the Wii U. And I think the Switch was successful for that same reason, that like it had that immediate, you understand what this is. The messaging is super clear. You can see how it appeals to families. You can see how it appeals to hardcore gamers. It had Breath of the Wild day one. We knew Mario was coming later that year. Like, I don't think
Skyrim being played on a plane. Yeah, it was like, how is this even possible?
And and you were like, and I remember being like, there's no way it'll be that fast. Like, this is probably, you know, like they're probably showing best case scenarios and everything. And it was like, no, it is. It's that simple. It just works. And it has a great library. And all of those things were novel at the time because Nintendo had not wowed us with a product that was that attractive, that didn't feel like it was made for kids, that had an immediately identifiable and attractive library out the gate. Like, I don't think you'll ever have a perfect storm like that again, not only in terms of that many quality things being decided on and coming together at the same time, but also coming off of such a low point. Because
honestly,
if the Switch continues to be this successful, we'll never be that low for us to get that high again.
Yeah, exactly. Like even if skip the Switch Pro next, like January, they put out a trailer for the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's like as powerful as the PS5 and the Xbox Series X somehow magically, and whatever, like that kind of stuff, still couldn't recapture exactly that, because like you said, it's not coming off of that low where it's like now the idea of having handheld gaming be powerful in and of itself is like, okay, that's pretty standard and like more powerful ideally, but with the Steam Deck and stuff, it's like it's exciting, but it's also not like mind-blowing at the same time. Even if it was like way more powerful than the Switch, just the idea of having powerful games in your hands is like, there's whatever that's, I always forget this phrase, where like benefits get lost over the more you increase.
Diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns. You guys got it. There's just diminishing returns at that point. And like, that's totally fine. And like, honestly, I'm very happy still with what the Switch is. Again, it's not, to round out the video, that topic, it's not as exciting as it once was. Totally fine, but I'm still really happy with what the product is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, would love to see it get more refined, get stronger and stuff, so that it can just, those diminishing returns, that's totally fine. Just diminish them, go ahead. But some returns would be nice as well. So, it's it's an interesting thing. And I'm going to call it there. Any last comments on the video, that whole topic before we close out of that part?
No, I don't think so. I think we about summed it up.
Yep, we did it. So super quickly gonna go through the news thing. I mean, literally, there's not a ton of news other than Nintendo had their quarter 1 financial stuff for 2022. You guys talked about it on your podcast, sounds like some too, right?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
We did, yeah.
We talked all about it.
Yeah, so we'll let you guys do most of it. The highlights real quick are new Pokemon Snap sold 2.07 million, but also, like, I don't know, Miitopia sold over 1 million. That's nice to see. And
surprising.
Honestly, Ring Fit Adventures in the top 10 now. That's super fun. And more things.
And Mario Kart is still like selling like crazy. We are never getting a new Mario Kart.
Never.
It's going to keep selling this one forever and ever and ever. I was absolutely convinced Animal Crossing was going to overtake it. And then now Mario Kart sold 4 million more copies.
Honestly, that's
like,
the thing,
no
is
way.
like Animal Crossing had a huge bump and it'll still have sales for a while, but it could have it if the rumors are true / their hints are true that there's a really big update coming down the line, then maybe that could pull
if their like tweet isn't just a complete fabrication.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because there's two things. There's that one tweet, and then also there was Q&A with Doug Bowser at some point, and he said something that like hinted at like, we know people are wanting more updates and blah blah blah, and we're gonna do those. But he could mean anything as small, like. It feels like there would be something big, and it's been so long now since we've had anything substantial, but
you got to imagine they want to do a paid update to that game at some point.
Yeah. It's
33.89 million copies. Like, you want to put out some DLC.
Yeah. So, that, but I don't think at this point, like, whereas Mario Kart is just gonna keep selling.
I don't know why they didn't put out a season pass for it though. Like, that's my thing.
Mario
Is like,
Just
put out more new stuff for it.
I guess they could, but like they already had the stuff. I mean, what do you do more Mercedes?
Just put more random Nintendo characters in it. They put like Link and the Animal Crossing characters in there. Like,
my only guesses are like,
add some like new stuff in, couldn't you? Like maybe there's an arms course or like stuff like that from the new franchise.
Why not?
I do wonder if they've got Mario Kart 9 just in their back pocket, not literally done, but just slowly working on it, because
can you imagine they finished it and they're like, we're sitting on it until this stops selling, man.
Honestly,
like, we're never going to put it out.
Like, and that's why, they were like, they had these ideas that are intrinsic to what Mario Kart 9 is, blah, 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 whatever. And that it would be harder to add stuff, like pull from that to bring it back to Mario Kart 8 instead. And that would jeopardize somehow Mario Kart 9. Cause they did add stuff at the beginning, like the deluxe part of Mario Kart 8, like, it is deluxe comparatively, but not having paid DLC seems like a waste of
just money on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah. Charge me $20 and give me another pack of courses and some more characters. Yep. How hard would that be?
Here's the other thought for the Animal Crossing thing is if they do a big update, I could see it selling to more people because it just gets talked about and like more people will then buy it and all that stuff. But also they could easily get people to buy their own Switch because they want to have that update and like rebuy Animal Crossing for themselves. Like I know, so I talk about my godson every once in a while.
For my partner because I absolutely refused to share an island.
And so that's the thing. Yeah. Like, so my godson is playing Animal Crossing and then we're actually hanging out with his parents in a little bit here. And Stephanie, his mom, was saying to my wife, Ashley, she was like, yeah, I've gotten kind of hooked on Animal Crossing. And like, I wouldn't be too surprised if down the road, they ended up, instead of having their family Switch that's shared with everybody, they end up slowly getting other Switches, rebuying Animal Crossing. So that's like long-term sales potential of Animal Crossing is double dipping because of a kind of annoying thing that Nintendo did.
You have to admit that you have to think that was intentional though.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. For exactly the reason we're describing, because they suckered how many people in, especially that it happened during the pandemic when people were like, yeah, whatever, forget it. I'll buy a Switch. Where else am I going?
It was the most frustrating time for it to happen though, because you could not get one.
That's why
we tried to get one for my sister-in-law for like 2 months. It took so long. It wasn't until like 3 weeks after her birthday that GameStop had one bundle for like $530. That, I mean, when I say it was like her parents and we kind of went in on it, but like, ooh, man,
we did that for my future sister-in-law, and it was funny because we had the idea, and I was like, I don't know that we're going to be able to find a Switch. And then I went on Twitter and like Wario64 was like, oh, Switch is back on stock on Amazon, and I was like, awesome. Yoink! Like literally that day, and I was like, wow.
You have the best luck with Amazon.
Specifically with getting consoles on Amazon.
Right, it's always like, Amazon for you.
Look at it.
Clicked right through.
So there you go. There's that stuff. That's the news that we're going to talk about. We're done talking about the news. That was really fast.
Nailed it.
We did it. We're going to finish up with a Q&A, which we love to do. There's not a ton of questions this time, other than I asked a question on YouTube, the YouTube community, and put a poll out. And so lots of people answered the poll. So quickly, we'll end up going through these pretty quickly. But I asked when people got their Switch based on the video that I made this week. It was interesting to find out. And so of the people that watch our channel and respond to this stuff, the spread is like pretty early heavy. It's 48% in 2017, 32 in 2018, and then single digits for 2019 to 2020. 2019, 9%, 2020, 9%, 2021, 2%. Before I get into the comments, what do you guys take away for this? So what I wonder, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is like, are people that are buying the Switch more recently just buying it and playing it and not really taking part in the discourse, not doing the YouTube thing about it? You know, if like it's something that you got in on the early days and you stuck with, or you maybe didn't really get in at all, kind of.
Isn't that the same with anything though? Like, you're an early adopter of a console,
you're an enthusiast,
you're more likely to be engaged with it, and then as it just becomes something, you can walk into a store and go, oh, they've got a Switch. Oh, there's a Mario game right next to it. I know I like Mario. I'm going to get those two together. That you just happen to pick it up.
So it's a chicken and egg thing of, you're saying, I think the opposite of what I was thinking, but that totally makes sense. That it's the people predisposed to watch the channel are the ones that got it early on in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the people that are getting it now are ones that also aren't predisposed to really care that much about the big picture of it. Like attach rates and stuff like that probably are, you know, the whole, like, on average, people have bought 7.1 games per person. And that's definitely skewed more towards me, who's bought dozens and dozens of games versus somebody else who's
and do you remember like at the beginning when they sold more copies of Breath of the Wild than they had Switches? It's like that's the enthusiast mentality of like, I'm gonna have one copy as like a collector's edition that's just gonna sit on my shelf forever. And
I was thinking that was because they just didn't have enough Switches.
It could have been
people were buying it ahead of the end.
Definitely both. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
That's what I did. I got my copy of Breath of the Wild and I couldn't find a Switch for like a week.
That's so funny.
I was going to wait for a fun anecdote. My plan was to wait till Mario Odyssey came out to get a Switch. I was like, it's going to be hard, but like, again, I didn't have a Wii U. I only was getting back into Nintendo like when the Switch was announced. And like I'd been getting back into playing my Wii, or like I got a Wii when we got married in 2015, but I guess I got it later than that. Whatever. In 2016, I played literally Twilight Princess and Mario Kart Wii, and was like, yeah, Nintendo is fun. And that was it. That was the whole extent of my gaming that year. And then they announced the Switch, and I was like, this seems pretty cool, and started just getting into like all the YouTube videos talking about it. But yeah, then a month after the Switch came out, I was like, I really want to get one. And my tax return came in, and it was like just the right amount of money I was like, Ashley, do I get a Switch, or do we put this towards our credit cards? And she said, get a Switch. I said, okay.
That's why we got married.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense though, right? Because you think about, I think the people who are getting it early, right, are already excited about the product or excited about Nintendo in general.
Yeah.
And I think you talked about, right, how everyone who's an early adopter had that same experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that because there was that excitement and also not that much to do, I think it encouraged the YouTube podcast communication, community around it, because everybody was like, oh, this thing is so incredible. Breath of the Wild is so incredible. Can you imagine what Metroid Prime 4 is going to be like? Can you imagine what Odyssey is going to be like? Can you imagine this, that? Yep. And I think that, those kinds of people probably found fanatixfour then and have been ride or die with you since.
Yeah. And honestly, probably too, it's probably skewed based on what our channel is as well. There you go.
Right.
Yeah, I have to do that sometimes as well.
Gotta get the
I've
refocus.
Been out of focus for a while. Yeah. Based on what our channel is, our channel really is still doing the thing that I enjoyed and AJ enjoyed and stuff about, like, I mean, that's the reason I joined the channel, partly was because I really liked what fanatixfour was doing, but it was very of 2017, 2018, like thinking about fun things Nintendo could do and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, somebody who came in for Animal Crossing probably is watching some YouTube stuff, but it's an Animal Crossing YouTube channel, or like, which those definitely exist, where that's literally all they talk about is Animal Crossing.
Chewy Plays. YouTube.
Yeah, there you go.
Chewy Plays.
So at that point, you've got tons of people that started in 2020 and some in 2017. It would be definitely skewed in the 2020 direction. So, it's probably all that to say, everybody that's listening, just thanks so much for sticking around, because you're great. That's it. I'm going to read some of these. None of these are actually like questions. So they're just shout outs for what you commented. Joshua Taylor said, I typically wait till there's enough games I want to get on the system that's out or coming out. When Mario Maker 2, Link's Awakening Remake, and Luigi's Mansion were coming soon, I felt the Switch had a decent library by then and picked up a Switch in May 2019 with Odyssey, and soon after that, Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
I can't imagine having that level of restraint. I really can't.
Me neither.
I mean, it's got to be that, like, for me, I played Breath of the Wild. Like, I'd seen lots of Breath of the Wild stuff, but I was okay waiting for it. I went to a friend's house that had a Wii U on launch day, and we played the first 20 minutes of Breath of the Wild. I was like, oh no. And then like watch Nintendo Life videos on like amazing things you could do in Breath of the Wild. I was like, but if I just stayed away from it for a while and remembered this game seems like it could be cool, I could maybe see having more.
I genuinely couldn't. I watched that GDC talk on design for Breath of the Wild, and I was like, I need to buy this game. Like, I need it right now.
I wish they did more of that stuff. Honestly, that was so interesting.
I know.
Yeah, it really was.
I remember as soon as they did that first console like presentation where they're like, here's what the Switch is. I was like, I'm in, whatever. Tell me when can I pre-order it? Let's go.
Yeah. Next one, Aztec Wolfman said, I got Breath of the Wild before I even got my Switch. Hey, look at that. Luckily, I only had to wait 2 months after launch to get my Switch. 2 months.
Oh, I had 2 weeks. That's a long time.
I love characterizing that as only 2 months. I would have lost my damn mind at that point. 2 months just sitting with it in the shrink wrap.
Do you unseal it though? Like, do you take it out and have a look
wouldn't.
at it?
Lick the cartridge, that whole thing.
Yeah, give that go. Do you know I've never done that?
Me neither. I had
me neither. We're all not dumb.
Continues to say, then began what felt like almost an eternity for me to finally play Splatoon 2. Yep, true. Luciano Nicolas Garcia said, got my Switch right after Metroid Prime 4 was announced. At first, I thought he was going to say right after Metroid Prime 4, and I was like,
I'm so sorry, Luciano. That's
Can you imagine if you bought it just because Metroid Prime 4
was
coming out?
Yes.
And that was the only game you were excited about? It's like the people that bought the Wii U when they saw the Zelda preview.
Yeah.
But they technically come out on that console, so you don't want to play it there.
Yeah. So it continues. I bought it with Splatoon 2, 1, 2 Switch, Mario Kart 8, and Zelda Breath of the Wild. Quite happy with my initial picks. Still waiting for Metroid Prime 4, though Dread is a fine surprise. Indeed.
Did you either of you pick up 1, 2 Switch? It was kind of one of those games.
No,
never bothered with.
It didn't feel like it was worth the money.
Should have been a pack-in, I think, just to demo what HD Rumble is and stuff.
I've said the same thing. AJ has a different opinion of that, but pretty much that like it sold a ton of copies. So like business-wise, it shouldn't have necessarily been a pack-in. My enjoyment-wise, should have been a pack-in. You know what I mean? Like plenty of people bought it, so like they didn't need for it to be a pack-in. However, I think it would have been an interesting, like it would have been icing on the cake at that point as a pack-in, which like who doesn't love some icing on the cake, you know?
And it would have then been the best-selling game on Switch, which is, perfect business sense. Like Wii Sports was the best.
True, honestly, yeah. Cool. Hello, cool. It's been a while. Said, I think I got mine either late 2017 or early 2018. Bought it for Breath of the Wild, and an inevitable Smash Bros. Stayed for everything else. Also, yay, I missed the podcast. Made it back in time. Good stuff. Indeed. 7 said, I got my OG Switch a week after launch. It was the last one in store. My mom now has the Switch, and that whole wing of the mall doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
Rico Fly, which... that's a fun name.
That's a great name.
Just saying. Said, I got Breath of the Wild for my first game on day one. Chronically Cal. Hello again.
Right?
I know.
Who's buying it and not getting, like, I remember seeing that where they're like, oh, Breath of the Wild has this insanely high attachment rate. And I was like, what else did you buy it for?
Bomberman R. If you're Bob Wolf from Wolf 10. No, that's AJ talks about that. I mean, obviously, in the end, they both agreed Breath of the Wild is the best game. But when it was first announced, Bob was more excited for Bomberman R than for maybe not more, but he was very excited for Bomberman R. So they played it at the demo event and then they left and were like, never mind. Which is just is a funny, like, imagining Bomberman R as if it were one of the like upper echelon games or whatever is just a funny alternate reality. But I'm glad there are other good games that we could all enjoy. Chronically Cal said, got it for Mario Odyssey and ended up playing way more Breath of the Wild.
Makes sense.
That. Yep. 88 leads.
Way more running around to do.
Yeah, it's true. Mario Odyssey was fantastic. I remember right before it came out when people were saying, there was some internal Nintendo review thing. I remember a friend of mine was telling me that like they internally reviewed Mario Odyssey as better than Breath of the Wild. And I was like really excited because I was like, I love Breath of the Wild. I'm going to love Mario Odyssey even more. And I love Mario Odyssey, but comparatively still Breath of the Wild is number one.
It's tight though, I think.
Like,
I think if you made the argument, because I remember when I played Odyssey, like in the immediate aftermath of finishing Odyssey, I was like, this might be better than Breath of the Wild. I don't know.
Also, I think there is an element of if you stuck with Nintendo the whole time up to Mario Odyssey felt that much better because you experienced the kind of lows of missing the sandbox Mario stuff. Whereas for me, I had legitimately played Mario Sunshine for the first time ever the summer before Mario Odyssey came out. So there was an element where I got to experience the amazing game that was that game, but the extra stuff around it, like we talked about with the Switch as it was coming out, there's an element of context that I was missing that made it that much better for people that
I needed that.
Yes,
I was I spent the whole Wii U generation. I was like, there's going to be a Mario. We're going to get that 3D Mario. The narrative is going to change. It never changed. It got worse. And then the Switch came out. Thank God.
Yeah. So 88 leads says 2020 Animal Crossing brought the Switch to my attention. I'll never play it, but I bought one for Breath of the Wild. That's funny. That's so interesting.
That's wild to me. That's a wild path to get here.
Yeah, I love it. Love
to be like Animal Crossing. No, you know what though? I'm gonna get it for Breath of the Wild, a 3-year-old game. It's like, okay, respect.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not in circles that talk about games or whatever, where like you wouldn't have known about Breath of the Wild, I guess I could especially see that. Yeah, interesting. Ian Pittman said, family got one in 2017 for Breath of the Wild, but I got my own in 2018, the Smash bundle. Nice. AC said, let's go Pikachu, baby, even though it was almost a year after it came out.
I loved that game.
It was fun. Honestly, I had more fun with it than I anticipated.
Me too.
There are things that I still am frustrated about it with, where I would probably go back and replay it more than I go back and replay Sword and Shield, because in Sword and Shield, I feel like there's so much more that I should do in the playthrough that I am in. Like I beat the story, but it just feels like there's so much to be done. It feels a bit daunting. Whereas like I'm looking forward to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because it feels like an easy game to do, like, you know, the YouTube Nuzlocke runs kinds of things, and just like play it again just for fun.
That game. I'm so excited for that game.
Yeah. And so Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee would have been well, you can't do Nuzlocke runs in that. I mean, maybe there's some way to.
You probably could. Yeah, I feel like it would not be super entertaining.
Trainers. Yeah. You'd have to limit capturing a lot. I mean, actually just limit
the first Pokemon that pops up on screen. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. People must do it. Yugimoto PL said, I got my Switch 4 days ago. Hey, look at that.
Wow.
Love to hear it.
Have you been subscribed to this channel for that long, or did you get your Switch 4 days ago and then be like, podcast?
I do wonder that. There's definitely some people that I'll see in comment sections that are like, man, I can't wait to get my Switch. So there's people watching ahead of time, but I don't know how many people.
What an interesting person that must be, who is engaging with Nintendo YouTube content and listening to podcasts, but does not own a Switch.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, I remember doing that when I was like a kid, you know, and it's stuff you couldn't afford yourself. You would watch anything or read anything about it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what? That's fair. I used to watch stuff about PlayStation when I didn't have a PS3 because I wanted one. You're right. I'm old and privileged now and have money to buy a console, so thought rescinded.
Yeah. Next comment is from Lightning. Okay, so Lightning said, I got a Switch in 2019 because talk about Breath of the Wild as well as the soundtrack. Oh, that's fun. Got me interested to dive back into gaming. I was a lapsed gamer. The last real consoles I owned before the Switch were the old 3DS, Wii, and PS3. I played the heck out of the Wii and only dabbled with the 3DS and PS3. Now here I am as a hardcore Switch gamer with too many games in my library and watching YouTube videos about Nintendo speculation. This feels very relatable for several of those things, at least.
Love that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was game. Honestly, it's funny when I say it because it sounds very dumb, but I've said out loud before, like, yeah, I fell off gaming when I was like 10. Which it's like, no, that's not a time that you fall off gaming. But the narrative was basically like, I started playing games and was like super into it when I was like, I don't know, 7 or something like that. Got an N64 and a Game Boy, started playing Pokemon, loved it. Then we moved from France to the States, and I really wanted to get a GameCube because it had just come out. It was 2002. And my parents were like, we're only going to be in the States for 2 years and then we're going back to Europe. So like, there's no point buying a console that's not going to work. That's only going to work for these 2 years. So no, you can't get a GameCube.
Locked.
Yep.
Nonsense.
I know. And like, even then, even if it weren't region locked at the time, like Transformers and stuff, because you couldn't just get like a new, you know, adapter, a new charger.
And you had that big power brick thing on it as well. Didn't you?
So all that kind of stuff is just like, so I just didn't get a GameCube. And then by the time 2 years passed, I played some Game Boy stuff here and there. And then we moved to Belgium and then got a GameCube pretty much immediately, but just didn't play that much, you know, really enjoyed a couple of games that I played, but like my parents just didn't buy me a whole lot of games, and I didn't ask for that many games. I think I just wasn't, not a lot of my community was like super into games. It was like, we played some Mario Kart and we played some, I played Lord of the Rings, Return of the King a ton and that kind of thing. But yeah, so all that said, that was kind of when I like fell off, quote unquote. And then good old Switch, you know?
So you had like a gap of that long? Like you fell off when you were like a child and then got back into it in your like late 20s?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it was like, again, like I would say I still enjoyed playing games for sure in those days, but it just wasn't casual. Yeah, for sure. And I think a big thing of it was that I never had a community where like we all cared about games at the same time. Even Pokemon, I played pretty much solo, other than like tried to trade with the friend here and there, but pretty much it was just a personal activity.
I guess that is a huge thing of it, because like I think a big part of, because I don't know, I had a period where I kind of fell off games, but like my version of falling off of games was like I was still playing video games. Like there was never been a point where I never played games, but like I didn't really play a lot of. I might play one single player game a year or two single player.
Yeah, that was the same as me. And it was mainly because of work that I just like stopped.
Well, and for me, that point was really actually when I was like a teenager. Like it was when I was probably from like 14 to 16, maybe. Because I was like, I don't know, I was spending a lot of time like out, I was out playing with, not playing really, I guess, not me. Hanging out, like screwing around with my friends and like, hanging out behind 7-Elevens and stuff. And like, I was in a band and I was interested in other things, so like I would, play the odd game here or there at night, or I would like play Halo 3 with my friends a lot, or Left 4 Dead 2 a lot. And we would play Smash together or Mario Kart or whatever. But like, it was more a social thing because I had a big group of friends that were all nerds, But yeah, like it was the Xbox 360 era. And like, it was halfway through it when I really got back into single player stuff in a big way, because I played Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's for me, I think too, during that time, it was pretty much me and my friend James hung out all the time. But also we were my high school band. He still plays music, and I mean, I still do too, but very, very slowly and passively. But that was, so that was like, most of my time went to that. I just stay up late writing and recording songs, and they were all pretty bad, but you know what can you do when you're 16?
Sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at something.
Very true. Very wise words. Moving on. Spaceman Spiff said 2017.
Fantastic name, by the way.
Every time. It gets me every time. Said 2017, Zelda Breath of the Wild. Trevor Steinberg, hello, Trevor, said mine was a pandemic-inspired purchase. So look at that.
Never got you here.
Yep. CC Eider,
Cider, maybe?
Yeah. Something like that. Said I got the Switch in 2018 for Smash Ultimate. Herringen, something said Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. And lastly, Kai Toad said I got the Mario Aces bundle. I'm curious.
I don't even remember that bundle.
I also don't know anyone that has that game.
This guy.
Do you enjoy it? Do you play it?
So I really liked Mario Tennis on the Game Boy. Game Boy Color? I think Game Boy Color. I was looking forward to this. The single player was pretty much the main reason I would play it, and did play it, and was disappointed. Not with good. The like gameplay wise, fantastic, phenomenal gameplay, but just like not a whole lot of single player content, and that was disappointing. So that's the long and short of it. If you play with anybody else that also wants to play the game, great. I don't think this kind of game is great. I don't personally think Mario Kart is as great for parties as a lot of other people do, unless you're friends with gamers. You know what I mean? Like if I play Mario Kart with most friends of mine, then I'm typically going to be winning. Like that's not exclusively true. More and more people have Mario Kart now and have the Switch. So like that's less the case. But at least I remember in high school, I'd play with like my sister and her friend would be over and they were like, oh, we should play Mario Kart. And they'd be like battling between 5th and 6th. And I'd just be like very far out in front first. And I'm not like even a amazing Mario Kart player, just was better than they were. So same kind of thing with Mario Tennis.
I have that problem now. People just, when I get good at games, people just refuse to play with me, and it's really disappointing. And I can imagine it's what AJ feels like with Smash. But nobody wants to play with AJ.
Yeah. AJ's a good sport about it though, because like he'll pick characters he's bad with, and like you
can kind of
just flat out not try. Like he will just let you off.
You can definitely in Smash, you can tone it down more because everything is a decision. Whereas with Mario Kart, like everything is a decision, but it's like just the racing part becomes second nature. And so like avoiding obstacles, you would have to intentionally hit obstacles and bump into walls or not turn as sharply or whatever. And like, that just feels weird to like handicap yourself in that way. Whereas at least with Smash, you can kind of just be like, whatever, I'm just not going to punish that thing that obviously I should punish because I'm AJ and I'm smart about this.
I used to love the built-in handicaps on the old Mario Party games. They were great. Like you could give people more stars or give people more coins to get them like a leg up. If
Ultimate Chicken Horse, you can do that in that and get less percentage. Mitch and I played with Ashley and our friends Mitch and Catherine, and I said this last week, I think. But Mitch and I were both like, we're doing all right. Let's just turn up the handicap. And so we switched it, which was a mistake, to getting 10% the amount of points that anybody else would, which literally, if you got all the points you possibly could in a single run, like you were the only one that won and you got whatever, I don't think you could get a whole points worth amount. Like there's a certain amount of rounds that it goes anyway, but also it kind of just stops at some point. So
that's funny.
Yeah, whatever. So that's all those. Lastly, last segment, got some questions, and then we're going to finish up. Brendy Crocodile, #GoTeamAdventure, said,
shout out to Brendy.
Hey, is that a Flip Games or Flip Stream Games?
Yeah, one of our
Patreon supporters.
Look at that. Love to see it. Brendy said, what do you think about the ranked online rewards just added to Mario Golf Super Rush? For reference, earning a rank in August nets you red, blue, or yellow Yoshi alt color.
I really like that idea. I love the idea of games like rewarding you with, kind of like cosmetic badges of honor for achieving something in a season. I think it's just like a nice incentive for you to be like, oh, I want that alt. Like I'm going to jump in and throw my hand at it and see if I can try to rank up and get better at the game. And, I think a lot of players, if you really love a game and you want to just get better at it, that's enough of an incentive to play and train or whatever. But I know for me, I kind of feel like I need something. I need a carrot, like that's like I talked about, like getting the season pass in Pokemon Unite. It's nice to feel like I'm working towards something, you know? So I think this is a pretty cool solution.
I wonder with this kind of thing, because back in like Tennis Aces days, there were characters that you could, if you did something, you could get them early. You could get them this month, but then you would just get them normally afterwards anyway. So I wonder with these, if it's something that like, say you get the game in a year, will you still be able to get these? And like in a game like League or something like that, absolutely not. Like cosmetics are the lifeblood of a lot of that game. So like you can't. But I do wonder with it just being like a regular old Nintendo game, if they would do that down the road or not. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, maybe it'll be a thing they cycle,
I think it will be,
that's true.
Like, I don't think it's going to be like a Tetris 99 situation where the boards come and go and they're promotional, although that would be really cool to see them do that, do more of that. But
that is a good comparison though. Yeah.
I think they need to be available all the time, because if you play with friends a lot on this game, which ultimately is the goal for the Super Rush mode, you want to see that they've got something cool and you want that as well. And to be able to work towards that by getting an A rank. Like that's how you take friends. And I guess doing it cyclical also kind of ties into how Animal Crossing does it, where you have to get like all the certain fish within the month. If you don't get it, you can wait until the next year. So maybe that's how they're going to do it. Like every August is this, every September it's this, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, because like I feel like however Splatoon does stuff like this, which if it does it at all, would be a good way to continue doing stuff like that, because Splatoon has some good press. So like should be good. But yeah. AJ asks, AJ, do you guys, is he one of your patrons? Is he one of the people from your?
Never heard of him. Yeah.
Oh man.
Long time, first time, I guess.
Yeah, long time, first time must be. Yeah. AJ McZelda Remastered in HD said, FMK, which I'm pretty sure stands for Futz, murder, something and like that, cranium. No, are
we doing murder or marry?
I'm dead Mary. I was trying
there's 2 kills.
Yeah, of course, you murder and kill. Yeah, I was trying to think of 3 words for murder, one that starts with an F, but I can't think of F word that means murder. So
fatalize, I guess.
Fatality, murder, kill. So FMK, everybody knows. Great. First party Nintendo game DLC edition. If given the choice, which games without DLC would you give paid DLC, free content updates, no post-content release? Okay, so that's the three options. One, so it's not really FMK. It's which one gets paid DLC or free content updates or no post-content release or post-release content. Each can have only one choice, can be unreleased games, can be games that already have got one or more of the above, or no games that already got one more of the above. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So for me, he said...
It's a good question.
Yeah. Paid DLC, Splatoon 3. This is for AJ said for himself. Paid DLC, Splatoon 3. Free content updates, Mario Party Superstar, and no post-release content, Metroid Prime 4. I mean, those are good answers.
They are, but I agree with two of those, but I want to swap them. So I don't care about the DLC for Splatoon 2 because I never played the single player, and I would imagine they'll do the similar route for Splatoon 3. But free content updates are the lifeblood of that game, and the additional free modes and the extra outfits and things like that you got. I want that to be the free one. And Mario Party Superstar, I am very, very happy to just keep buying packs of boards and mini games and just giving them like $9.99 for another pack of mini games when I fancy it.
Yep.
So I'd be happy with that.
Especially if that means better quality content over the time.
There's more incentive for them to do it rather than it just being free stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't really know no post-release content. I don't care about Metroid Prime, so maybe
that's why I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna also say Metroid Prime 4 because I'm gonna try Metroid Prime 4, but I don't need DLC for it. That's fine. Maybe just make the main game good. That works. Yeah, so I'll agree with that one.
Yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 for no post-release content. Paid DLC, I'm gonna agree with Steve and say Mario Party Superstar. I said when they announced it, I hope that they do additional packs for here's more games from the original Mario Party or more boards. Here's and boards and mini games. Yeah. From the original. Here's more from 2. Here's more from 3. Here's some from the GameCube ones. Just make it a place where you can kind of buy all of the old Mario Party content all in one place and with some new bells and whistles. I'll eat that up. And then for the free content updates, that's where I'm stuck. Because I have games to answer, but they're all games that have gotten something. So I'm trying to think of one that has gotten nothing that I want free stuff in.
Yeah. Well, I'll give my answer and then you can come back around to it if you get something. Yeah. Paid DLC. Oh, I had it a second ago and then I lost it. I'll switch to one that I do remember then. Free content updates, Metroid Prime 4. Specifically that, not even for me, but that theoretically that it could have an interesting and good multiplayer mode for other people because I don't care about multiplayer at all. But that could have just some free content updates as it goes forward, and that could be cool, and it seems like that's something they're wanting to do, not necessarily with the updates, but with just with Metroid Prime 4 having multiplayer at all. So I'm going to say that one, a little bit maybe controversial. Paid DLC. Oh, I had something. Oh, Animal Crossing. That's what it was.
Yeah,
straight up Animal Crossing.
You can't have it though, can you? Because it can't have already one or more of the above.
Oh, I see what you mean. So it
has had free content.
It had free content updates.
That's the
true.
problem, right?
Oh,
it's because I was also I want Pokemon
it's kind of got to be
Snap
upcoming games
to continue getting them, and that.
Right.
That doesn't work. I thought about ARMS. ARMS has gotten free updates.
Yeah,
Mario Odyssey has gotten free updates.
I'm going to shirk the rules because it's just AJ's rules. So who cares? And I feel like, I'm still going to just say Animal Crossing because I feel like there have been updates, but it's not huge stuff.
Yeah.
Either,
some of them were pretty big.
Some of them, swimming, that was cool and stuff. But but otherwise a lot of the stuff was stuff that I think were rolled out that could have just been in the base game.
I think all of it was. It was we're bringing Red back. He probably would have been there if they would have had more time for the development.
Yeah. So I think for me, I'm just pretending in my mind that all that stuff was basically base game stuff that came late, and that paid DLC stuff would be completely separate stuff.
All right, if we're going by those rules, then fine. I'll put that there, and I'm going to bump Mario Party Superstar down and say that should be free content.
Okay, cool.
Pokemon Snap added 30% of the game for free.
Much. Yeah.
Mario Party could do that too. What's up? Give me it for free.
I like it.
And then it won't, Pete. Like all they gave us was like a crummy online mode that doesn't work with a good.
Yeah, nobody likes that one. This is the one that everyone's gonna like. It's based on the best Mario parties. It's going to have online day one, and it's going to have free DLC. Mark my words.
And bonus stars are going to feel less janky than they ever have before. Lies. That's not.
No. I want them to feel janky so that it's authentic to the original experience.
Man, I think part of something about bonus stars, specifically in Super Mario Party, felt bad. I don't know what it was.
Unless you're the one that's like an experienced, seasoned Mario Party player, and you're playing with people who've never played the game before, and they're like 2 stars up, and you're like, yeah, I know, but I've landed on a ton of red squares, and I had all those exclamation marks. So don't you worry, I know I'm gonna
you love to see it. For the last one, for no post release content. Why do I keep saying it backwards? I mean, I could say, I know what I'm going to say. Golden Sun. Make a Golden Sun. And then I don't care if it has post-release content at all. Just make it, and then we'll be good.
Make a Golden Sun.
I love workarounds. All right, last couple questions. Falcon asked, would the Switch have done as well as it did were there not for a global pandemic? Thinking face.
No, I don't think it would have, because
still great, probably, but
it would have, but Animal Crossing wouldn't have done as well, which therefore the Switch wouldn't have done as well.
I guess it depends on what the question is. Like literally as well, no. Relatively, probably, but like
every console got like a huge bump last year because of the pandemic, and everyone just wanted entertainment at home.
Yes.
Yeah. So like the numbers were absolutely inflated by that. You know, you could argue artificially, I guess. But I think that like, I don't know. I don't think that margin is as crazy, right? Like it might not be as close to getting 100 million units right now as it is without that by a couple million, but you know,
totally agreed. Max Wright seems familiar. Which 2021 game that isn't slated for Switch do you wish was coming to the platform? Oh, and also as a follow-up, why?
I know exactly what it is. I think Steve and I talked about this on the air, and it's Death's Door.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not familiar, Death's Door, it's a delightful looking indie game. I don't remember the name of the studio, but it's like very much got a kind of that top-down isometric like Zelda vibe mixed with some, you know, I've seen like Souls-like, you know, kind of comparisons made and stuff like that. It looks gorgeous. It's very much on my radar. It's a game I'm really eager to play. And I know it's one that Max has said a lot of really nice things about on Twitter. And I the day it came out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this. And I went to download it on Switch, and I was like, it's not on Switch. And then I was like, okay, it's on Xbox. I was like, is it on Game Pass? No. I really want to play it on Switch. And that's where I left it. And then Pokemon Unite came out, and there we go. That's where all my
the
time
rest
went.
is history. So,
for a why, I think it just feels like a Switch game. Like I like playing.
It definitely does feel like a Switch game. It looks like a Switch game. Yeah.
I like playing games like that on a smaller screen. I just do.
Portably pick up and play that kind of
thing. Play it in bed.
I mean, similarly, I think my answer might be Tunic, which
great answer.
That same. I mean, literally same all across the board. Charming 2D Zelda, like, you know, looks like it would be great. And as far as why, I don't know that this is a follow-up to that question. I think he's just asking as a follow-up, just why, you know,
who knows?
Just why, you know, and I think
it's better not to ask.
It's better not to ask.
It's better not to ask. Just play video games.
I've got a couple more I would love to bring over, and one of them's already out, which I guess I don't know if slated.
No, it's just
it's not 2021 game,
so
right? So I want Draw Dog, which is currently a PlayStation exclusive, to come to Switch. It's the from the creators of Wonder Song. And you're this little dog, and you're like drawing on the world's been kind of color's been sucked out of it, and you've got to draw color on it, and there's like a little paintbrush and stuff, and I think it'd be great for the touchscreen. And then 12 minutes. I would love to be able to just play 12 minutes in bed, just play a few cycles of that before I go to bed.
That would be nice.
I think it'd be awesome.
Yep. Good stuff. Last one. This is a question that actually wasn't as part of the Q&A specifically, but Poofy Rain asked me on Twitter, and I was like, I don't know, just bring it up to the podcast because then we can talk about it more fully. They said, I have a question. If you already answered, point me to that answer. But do you believe if Metroid Dread, big if, does well, would Nintendo start to bring over other dormant titles like Star Fox, F-Zero, Golden Sun, Kid Icarus? I did answer it a little bit on Twitter, but thought we could expand on that a little bit here.
Maybe. It's hard to say. I think like trying to predict Nintendo's moves is like trying to herd cats. It's like it's not a science, it's an art, and it's messy. And I feel like Metroid is very unique because, you know, we've talked about this a lot on our show about how Metroid is, I think, thought of as a marquee title, but it's literally not ever been a marquee title. It's never sold particularly well. There are not that many of them. And like when you total up the lifetime sales of Metroid, it pales in comparison to any of the other games that I think are generally thought of as being of a similar caliber to it. So I think that specific example, like that dichotomy between the iconography and the legacy of Metroid versus the actual popularity and like Metroidvania as a genre being a thing that is named after Metroid, even though there are a lot of games in the genre a lot more popular than Metroid.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the fact that Nintendo has done a bad job of shepherding that franchise and making it as popular as I think it's poised to be, you know? With the fact that Samus is an iconic character, the Metroid is an iconic symbol. Those are things that I think, you know, non-gamers even would probably recognize and be able to identify on some level, right?
I don't know. I don't think they would.
You don't think Samus?
No.
I mean,
Smash.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I know AJ would quickly argue Smash. But I mean, I think Smash itself, the fact that Samus has been in since Smash 64 definitely means it's recognizable, at least to a degree, that it's like, oh yeah, it's that person from the suit. But in the same way that, like, for a lot of people, Captain Falcon, it's Captain Falcon. He's that guy in Smash.
Yeah, that's what I think it becomes. I don't think you know Samus and associate that as Metroid.
Yeah, no. I think
that it's in Metroid.
I disagree because like, and I maybe not to like the casual person, but to gamers, absolutely, I disagree. Like maybe they would still know Captain Falcon, but you think about Samus, right?
I think gamers would know Metroid anyway. Like the hardcore, like ones that in the know.
That's kind of my point, though. Is that I think Metroid has cultural cachet. Like Metroid has cool points. Metroid has like cred, but it's never been as popular as, you know, Zelda, right? Yeah. Which even Zelda is not as popular as the iconography of Zelda is, you know, when you look at sales. Breath of the Wild is the best-selling Zelda game by a lot. I think the idea that Metroid could be that is the reason that Metroid is going to get a push, and I think they're going to try to make Metroid a thing.
So are you
I don't
saying
know that
from
these other titles have that same.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to get at was, so, and that is the big question for sure. I mean, part of my answer for this was also, or that I already answered, is that I think it's a bit too late in the game for Metroid Dread to be the determining factor for these things. Like, I think at this point, Nintendo's already like, you know, maybe they're not halfway through a Star Fox game or anything, but they've already decided whether or not they're going to be working on a Star Fox in the near future. I would imagine, you know.
I think that's probably safe to say.
But I mean, some of these other things, I do think the opposite could be maybe more true, that if Metroid Dread, with all the push they're giving it right now, does poorly, and more of those risks that they're like, it's a risk for Metroid Dread to be getting as much as it would be more of a risk to put the money into it and not market it like that, honestly, but it's still a risk to put this much money in and spend all the marketing for it. And then, you know, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to sell pretty well. But if they do that several times where they're like, these risks aren't worth it anymore, then it could halt some of these other projects and they could start making safer bets, because I think right now they are starting to make more risky bet, or we're starting to see the fruits of the riskier bets that are of the result of good, first couple of years of the Switch. Things just take time, and so I think we're starting to see the fruits of that more than ever.
Yeah, and I feel like Metroid, Metroidvania is already a popular genre. Like you look at the other games that are listed here, right? Like I think Star Fox has obviously been mismanaged as an IP. I think that's easy to make that claim.
Yeah, I mean, the last game he was in was a Ubisoft game with like a Toys to Life thing. It's which kind of been done.
That game weren't Toys to Life. That would be such a it doesn't have to be you can get it digitally and stuff, but if that weren't associated with being Toys to Life, I feel like it would have done a lot better and better for Star Fox. So it's kind of a shame that it was just pull the cord at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I think the problem with Star Fox, right, is that what everybody wants is essentially what they tried to do on that Wii U game and mess.
What I want, that's for sure.
Everything. But what people want is Star Fox 64 in a modern era, right?
I think that's what people. I mean, we've talked about Star Fox a bunch on this channel, but that's what people say they want for sure.
Right.
I think it's like a Breath of the Wild thing where I mean, and I think a lot of properties are like this, where people are people were saying they wanted open world Zelda more so than anything else, but because they were sick of linear Zelda by the end of Skyward Sword and stuff like that, whereas blah, blah, blah. I think people say that. I think if we got another Star Fox 64, people would not be happy with it. Modern as it could be, whatever. I think it has to be a complete risk in the opposite direction for it to be able to to do well.
I think the easiest thing that they could do with it is try to do something that combines Star Fox 64 and Star Fox Adventures, where all of the I'm going to a planet, there's ship combat in between worlds, or kind of like Kingdom Hearts, where it's there are ship and tank missions on the planets you go to, but then
or
there are
Starlink, honestly,
where you get out and you're exploring and
I think definitely having on-foot sections. I mean, we've made a couple of videos ideating on Star Fox, but I think the multifaceted direction and grander direction is really important to making Star Fox actually successful in the modern era.
But these other examples, like F-Zero, I don't
Mario Kart is eating its lunch.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a reason for them to bring it back. Mario
obviously
Kart.
Haven't watched some specific FNAX4 videos.
I know, and you made a case for it. You made a case for it, my friend. But I don't know. I don't see it. I don't.
No, totally
at least not as a $60 boxed game. And I think that's the only kind of game that Nintendo's interested in making, really. So I don't know. And I think Golden Sun, I could definitely see how that works, and I know you've made a case for that one as well. I think I see that game a lot more, but that doesn't have any kind of how many hardcore Golden Sun fans are there versus how many hardcore Metroid fans are there? You know what I'm saying?
Here's what I'll say, and then I actually have to leave. Is that I'm going to make a video on this pretty soon. It's kind of been in the works in the backgrounds of my brain, not of any kind of documents or anything. I think some franchises, and especially Golden Sun, for whatever reason, are starting to get the slow buzz that Metroid had been getting for a while, where people were just saying the word Metroid long enough and talking about but Metroid something that blah, 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 and Metroid this and that. And I listening to other Nintendo podcasts or whatever, I'll hear people just say Golden Sun often enough that it's something that people are just kind of hearing. So, I'm personally very invested and would love a great new Golden Sun game. But I think there's an element too of when it does get announced that suddenly it'll flip the switch for more people than we might expect. They're oh, that's the thing I've heard of for whatever reason.
If this works, Parker, all I'm just going to chant every week on our podcast is Warrior Land. Warrior Land.
Yeah, totally.
Just manifest it. Just we'll manifest
get a new
it.
one.
Yeah. And so with that, let's all chant Warrior Land on 1, 2, 3 as we go out. 1, 2, 3.
Warrior Land.
There you go. All right. Thanks everybody so much for coming.
Beautiful.
Everybody listen to Flip Screen Games, everything's that they do. Are you guys on YouTube as well? I forget.
We are. Visit us at flipscreen.games. That's our website. It has links to the Twitch, the YouTube, social media, everything. Come join the Discord. Come chat.
Yeah.
Indeed.
The link
to
Discord's not on there. I will add it though. I just don't know how I forgot to add it.
Do that before Saturday when this goes up.
And that's about it from us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do all the YouTube-y type things and Twitter-y things, social media things. Who cares? Just have a good time. Most importantly, have a good rest of your day. All right. See you guys later.
Take it easy, everybody. Thanks
Bye.
for having us.